everyone. Welcome to today's class. In today's class, we'll be discussing about phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are a very important and integral component of the English language, particularly the spoken English language. And because these are so abundantly found in the spoken language, it is important that we master them. Mastering the phrasal verbs would ensure that you gain good communication skills in English. Today's class will be discussing them in detail. We'll mostly be looking at three aspects of the phrasal verbs: the structure, the meaning and the function. We'll look at the meaning and function of phrasal verbs first. We'll try and understand what this category means both grammatically as well as functionally. Now, the first part that you need to understand here is that phrasal verb is a multi-word verb. What does a multi-word verb mean? This means that this is not like your usual verb, which is usually a single word, a single action word, but this is a multi-word verb. Multi-word, as the name suggests, it means that there are more than one words in the combination. One of the word in the combination, the class of one of the word in the combination is a verb, right? The verb class, the word class is that of a verb. What are the other components? We'll look at it shortly, but whatever they are, we know that phrasal verbs are not like a single individual verb. They have a group of words together which function as a single verb, right? These verbs have idiomatic meanings. What does idiomatic meaning indicate? Idiomatic basically means that phrasal verbs, they do not have literal meanings. They have meanings that are beyond literal. Or some people would tell you in certain explanation in certain textbooks or classes, people might tell you that they form new meanings. When verbs combine with other words, with other segments and form a phrasal verb, the resultant phrasal verb, the resultant combination might give you a new meaning than the meanings of, which is different from the meanings of the individual verbs or the words used in the combination. But this may not be always true. If you look at a few examples of phrasal verbs, you would see that the resultant phrasal verb, the resultant combination of the verb and the other particles, they sometimes are just an extension of the meaning of the individual words, right? They are often the collocation between a verb and an adverbial particle. Look at the word collocation. Collocation is a phenomenon in language, or usually you say a pair of words are collocated when they go together with each other, right? They're often, or they're almost always found together with each other, and such pairs are called collocated pairs in the language. You can find collocations in English and you can find collocation across languages. This is a common phenomena which can be found in many of the languages of the world, right? Now, phrasal verb is also an example of collocation. So, basically phrasal verb is a collocation then between the verb and the adverbial particle. This is the meaning of collocation between verb and an adverbial particle. Okay. They, as we suggested in the beginning of the lecture, they are more commonly found in the spoken language of any language, which means these are also informal expressions, right? Anything that is abundantly or commonly a part of the spoken language has to be informal in nature too, right? So, for this reason, you do not see a prominent usage of phrasal verbs in prose, right, in written language, in academic prose, or any, for that matter, any other professional or academic writing. Okay, you have an example there, knock off, right? So, look at it. If we consider phrasal verb as a collocation between a verb and an adverbial particle, knock is your verb here, right? And this part that which follows the verb is referred to as the adverbial particle, right? So, this is then the collocation between verb and an adverbial particle, right? Now, we will look at the structure of a phrasal verb. This is a very important part because just knowing the phrasal verbs or their meanings is not important. How to use them in a sentence is also an important part, and we need to look at the grammar of phrasal verb in order to understand their usage in the sentence, right? So grammatically speaking, it is a grammatical collocation between your verb and the adverbial particle. Now, how do you arrange them in a sentence? What is its structural arrangement in the sentence is what we are going to look at now. There are two situations that you need to consider when you talk about the grammar of phrasal verbs, right? And the first one is when the phrasal verb has an object noun in the combination, right? So we look at the example first. The company put off the sales meet. Please look at this carefully. The sentence is the company put off the sales meet. Now, put off is your phrasal verb in the sentence, right? And look at what follows put off, the sales meet. This part becomes your object noun and put off is your phrasal verb in the sentence, right? So, this is the first example where you have the phrasal verb, which is the combination of the verb and the adverbial particle, followed by an object noun. This is the first structure that is possible with a phrasal verb in the sentence. Look at the second one, B. The company put the sales meet off. What do you see here? We have broken open this particular phrasal verb, put off, right? Right? So, put off has been broken open and in between has come the object noun. So, it is put the sales meet off. In the previous sentence, it was put off the sales meet. Now, it has become put the sales meet off. This tells you that there are two possible structures allowed when the phrasal verb has an object noun along with it, right? So, if the phrasal verb has an object noun to be used in the sentence, then two structures are possible with the object noun. The first one is when the object noun follows your phrasal verb. The second one is when the phrasal verb is split open, the combination of the verb and the adverbial particle is split open and the object noun is placed in between the verb and the adverbial particle, or rather you can say that the object noun follows the verb and it precedes the adverbial particle. So, these two are possible structures. A and B are two possible structures when you have an object noun in the combination, right? Now, there is another one. The second structure that is possible, the second structure that one needs to keep in mind while we are looking at phrasal verb is that structure which instead of an object noun uses a personal pronoun, right? This is a very important part. This is stricter and this follows a stricter rule than the previous one in the sense that when you have a personal pronoun in the structure like it, you, us, them, me, these are all personal pronouns, and if you have any of these personal pronouns in the phrasal verb structure, then it can only come in between the verb and the adverbial particle, which means your phrasal verb again splits open like in the case B, and the personal pronoun takes this gap, right? And this is the only possible, this is the one and only one possible structure allowed when you have a personal pronoun. In case of object noun, we have already seen that we have two structures allowed, right? You can either place it at the end or you can put it in between the verb and the adverbial particle. Whereas, if you're using a personal pronoun, then this can only come in between the verb and adverbial particle, right? So, what's the example here for the last one? The sales meet will not happen. The company put it off. So, you cannot say, for example, this part you cannot write it as put off it. This was possible with object noun, right? You could say put the sales meet off, right? Look at this, the second one, case B was that, put the sales meet off. But this structure is not allowed in the case of the personal pronouns. You have to write it as put it off. Put off it is ungrammatical and not acceptable. Okay. So, this is about the structure of a phrasal verb. Now, based on these structures, based on these two structures, then you can classify the phrasal verbs into separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. Okay, this classification is purely based on the possible structures or the allowed structures, permissible structures of phrasal verb in English language. So, you have separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. What are separable phrasal verbs? Like we just discussed, they allow for the separation of the verb and the adverbial particle, and mostly this happens through the intervention of an object noun or a personal pronoun, right? So, both personal pronoun and an object noun can interfere in between it can go in between, it can interfere the structure of the verb and adverbial particle, the combination, and you can have the separable phrase verb. So, the name separable comes from the fact that it is that the verb and the adverbial particle are separable from each other, they can be separated from each other. Inseparable phrasal verb, on the other hand, they do not allow for any such intervention. We will now look at a few examples of both separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. Separable phrasal verbs are the most common kind of phrasal verbs in English. They can have, there's a huge list of separable verbs in English language, and these are the more commonly found phrasal verbs in English, right? So, you can, I do not have a full list of the phrasal verbs available in English with me because of the time and space constraints, but you can easily find them online, or you can instead have a dictionary of phrasal verbs which would give you a full list of the phrasal verbs that are in current use in the English language. Okay. So, we will look at a few that we have today with us. The first one is bring out. Okay. What is the meaning? So, on the left hand column you have the phrasal verb, and towards the right you have your meaning for each one of them. So, the first one is bring out. Bring out means show, right. So, close down, the next one, close down is, the meaning is shut. Call by, the meaning is visit, right. Catch up, be at the same level. Rule out means to dismiss something. Sum up means to summarize. Now, I would like you to pay closer attention to what we discussed about the meanings of phrasal verbs, right. So, if you take a closer look at the list that we have here, the very few phrasal verbs that we have with us today, you will see that some of those phrasal verbs, they indeed have a new meaning. They have idiomatic meanings, a new meaning or a non-literal meaning than the meaning of the individual words which have formed them. For example, look at the phrasal verb, a phrasal verb like call by, right. The meaning of that phrasal verb is to visit, right. Call by means to visit. Now, neither does call nor does by indicate anything about visiting or to visit, right. So, the meaning is quite different from what the word call or by individually would mean, right. Similarly, something like the word catch up, right. If you look at the phrasal verb catch up, very much like call by, you would see that the individual words that form these phrasal verbs, they do not contribute towards the meaning of the resultant phrasal verb, right. They do not, the phrasal verb has a very different, a new meaning than what has gone into its formation, the individual components that has gone into that have gone into its formation. But look at an example like close down, okay, or look at an example like rule out, right. Both of them, particularly close down. If you look at close down, it is not very difficult to guess the meaning of this phrasal verb from the meanings of the individual words, which is close and the other one is down, right. Easier to guess the meaning from the individual words used in the combination, like close down in some sense can give you the meaning of closing down something, shutting down, right. There is a match in the meaning. So, this is what we meant in the beginning by saying that the explanation that phrasal verbs, they always have a new meaning, or they don't, they always follow a new meaning, or they give you a meaning that is different from the literal meanings of the individual words used, is not always true, right? So, close down is an example of a phrasal verb where the meaning given is related to the, is closely related to the individual meanings of the individual words in the combination. It is merely, if one might want to say, if at all there is an explanation to give in this case, one might want to say that the meaning given here, which is to shut, right, is an extension of the literal meanings of both close and down in the combination, right. So, please keep this in mind. You do not always have a new meaning. Sometimes you can also retain it from the individual words in the combination, right. Okay, so let's look at how we can use them in a sentence. We look at 2 or 3 in the list that we have. So, the first one, bring out. Okay, I am looking at these examples in the sentence particularly to also discuss the structure of the phrasal verb with you, right. So, the first one is bring out. Okay, bring out. If you use bring out in a sentence, you can have a sentence like, say, work hard and bring out the best in you, right. For example, if that's a sentence we have, work hard and bring out the best in you. Now, I particularly want you to focus on the structure here, right. So, the example here, I am only going to write the phrasal verb part here, right. So, bring out the best in you. Bring out the best in you. So, the sentence is work hard and bring out the best in you. If you see here, we have used the phrasal verb together. So, we have used it as an inseparable one, right, bring out the best in you. But since it is a separable phrasal verb, what you can also write is bring the best out in you, right. So, this structure is also possible. So, this structure is correct and this structure is also grammatically correct. Work hard and bring out the best in you. Work hard and bring the best out in you. Okay. So, these are separable. This is the meaning of separable phrasal verbs, which means there can be an intervening object noun here. This is an example where you have used an object noun. We can look at an example where we can use a personal pronoun as an interfering one. So, let us take the example of rule out. Okay. If you have a sentence with rule out, let us say my plan to go out on a holiday was ruled out by the teacher. So, I am again writing only the phrasal verb part of the sentence, ruled out by the teacher, right. Ruled out, my plans to go out on a holiday was ruled out by the teacher. So, this is again you have used ruled out together, right. So, first comes the phrasal verb, the verb and the adverbial combination, and then comes the object noun, right. Now, if you look at an example where this can be separated, because this is separable, right. So, let us say the sentence is, I wanted to go on a holiday, but the teacher ruled it out. Again, the teacher ruled it out. Okay. All right. So, here what is the interfering particle in between the verb and the adverbial particle? You have it, which is a personal pronoun, right. So, this is also a good structure. My plan for going on a holiday was ruled out by the teacher. So, ruled out is used together, the object is going on a holiday, right. And the second sentence, I wanted to go out on a holiday, but the teacher ruled it out. Okay, it referring to the plan of going for a holiday, right? So that is the original object, and the referential pronoun here is it, right? The personal pronoun we use here is it, which has interfered between the phrasal verb ruled out, right? So you have ruled as the verb, then the interfering personal pronoun, and then the adverbial particle out, right? So these are two structures. So the first one, the one that we discussed with bring out, is with an object noun here, right? The second one is with a personal pronoun, okay? So these are the two structures possible with separable phrasal verbs. So in the previous case, you can say something like bring the best dancer out in you, or singer, or anything you can write, okay? Bring the best dancer out in you, bring out the best dancer in you, okay? You can add it here. So this is the case where you use an object noun, right? And this is the case where you use a personal pronoun, ruled it out. Third example that we will look at is close down, right? Again, it will follow the same structure. So if you have a sentence like they closed down the shop, okay? They closed down the shop, right? So close down the shop, in this case it is verb, adverbial particle followed by the object noun, closed down the shop. You can also rewrite this sentence as they closed the shop down, right? So in this case it is close, verb, the shop, the object noun, then down is your adverbial particle, right? So in the case of object nouns, the object noun can either follow the adverbial particle or it can intervene between the verb and the adverbial particle. But in case of pronouns, right, in separable phrasal verbs, instead of the object noun, you can use a personal pronoun, but the only condition is that when you are using a personal pronoun, it always comes in between the verb and the adverbial particle. It cannot be pushed towards the end like you do with the object noun, right? Okay. Now, this is a list of some common inseparable phrasal verbs. Now, unlike your separable phrasal verbs, the list of the number of inseparable phrasal verbs can be definitive. This could be 2 or 3 up or down, but more or less these are the commonly used inseparable phrasal verbs in English. Okay, we'll look at some of them and try and make sentences with a few so that we understand their usage, right? The first one is come across. The meaning is find by accident, right? Then you have come by, which means acquire, get over, recover from, get round, persuade, go for, like a lot, lay off, stop, tell on means to report, hit on means to discover, keep at means to persist, live on means to exist, see about means to investigate, take after is similar to resemble, stand for means to tolerate, wait on means to serve, and pick on means to bully, right? So about 15 of them in the list, and these are more or less the ones that you can find in the English language. Like I said, there could be 2 or 3 more than this, but the more commonly used inseparable phrasal verbs in English could be this, right? Let's look at a few of them in order to understand how they are used in a sentence. So let's take the first one. The first one is come across, right? So if you think about a sentence, you can have something like I came across a big mansion when I was going to school. Okay, I came across a big mansion when I was going to school. If this is your sentence, then the phrasal verb here is come across. Now, why is this important? You cannot say, you can only say I came across a big mansion. You cannot say came a big mansion across. Or you can also not say came it across, right? So what are we saying essentially is that whether it is an object noun, right? Whether you are talking about an object noun, which is in the case A, or in case B, when you are talking about a personal pronoun, right? In both these cases, these are wrong structures. You cannot say, I came a big mansion across when I was going to the school, or you cannot say that I came it across. In both the cases, the right grammatical usage would be, I came across a big mansion when I was going to school. I came across it while I was searching for my book. Okay. So, in both the cases, you see that whether an object noun or a personal pronoun, it cannot interfere in the combination of the verb and the adverbial particle, right, which forms your phrasal verb. So, this is an example. This is what we mean by inseparable phrasal verbs, right. You cannot have anything intervening these combination, right. So, come across as an example of one such phrasal verb, inseparable phrasal verb. Another example is come by. The word come by, the phrasal verb come by means to acquire. Okay. Now, what sentence can you have with come by? You can say something like, where did you come by that sneakers? Where did you come by those sneakers? Right? They look lovely. So, again, this is an example of a phrasal verb which cannot be separated. So, you cannot insert, you cannot have an object noun or a personal pronoun intervening this combination. Okay? It has to be always come by. Another example, this one, say hit on, right, which means to discover, right. If I have a sentence like, the submission, the assignment is due tomorrow and I haven't yet hit on the solution, right. So, look at this example, hit on the solution. Hit on the solution, right. So, you have hit on as your phrasal verb here and the solution as your object noun. Okay. So, what we mean is when we say hit on is an inseparable phrasal verb, again as we discussed, what we mean is you cannot write hit the solution on, right. This is wrong. This is not acceptable. This is not grammatical, right, because this is an inseparable phrasal verb. Nothing can intervene. So, the only allowed structure, permissible structure would be hit on the solution, right. So, this is what inseparable phrasal verb means, right. The basic difference between an inseparable and a separable phrasal verb is that one does not allow for any sort of intervention in the structure of the phrasal verb, right. The other one does. Okay. Learning inseparable, when it comes to the learning aspect of phrasal verbs, inseparable phrasal verbs, they are a little easy to learn because, as I mentioned, they are very definitive in list, right. So, there is about 15, 16 or 17 of them. So, it is easier to learn them, to learn their usage. However, in case of separable verbs, the real problem arrives. It is a huge list, and to master them it will take time. What could really help you in order to acquire, in the process of the acquisition of phrasal verbs, is listening to the conversations of people who live in the societies and cultures that predominantly speak English, right. That could help you pick up better on the phrasal verbs in English. You can listen to podcasts, you can watch movies, listen to songs, okay. All of this medium, they can help you in acquiring the phrasal verbs better. And if you listen to songs and movies and all, they are usually replete with phrasal verbs. If you watch them, hear them, you will certainly learn a lot more new words, and it is a better way to do it because most of the times songs and movies, they all have the added benefit of having a context along with it. So, it will stay, whatever you learn and whatever you acquire from them, it will stay on longer and always. So, it will stay on with you, whatever you acquire from these mediums, right, than what you read. So, this is one method that you can use. Another thing about the phrasal verbs, the separable phrasal verbs, is that if you look at the combination of the phrasal verb, we know that the second part of it is an adverbial particle, right. Now, this adverbial particles are limited. Okay, verbs could be many. There are many verbs, but what it forms a combination with, which is the adverbial particle, they could be limited in number. So you will have adverbs like, if you observe the phrasal verbs clearly, you will see that you will have, mostly they form combinations with adverbs like back, down, over, up, okay, or words like off, right, in, right. So these adverbs that form combinations with the verbs in order to have phrasal verbs, adverbial particles, they are limited in number, although the verbs could be many more, right. So if you know the meanings of these adverbs, learning the meanings of these adverbs can also help you in remembering and using the phrasal verbs better, because their meanings don't change mostly, right. There are many phrasal verbs which will, like we discussed, they will take extended meanings of the individual words used, right. So knowing the meanings of these adverbs can then sometimes help you to learn the phrasal verbs better. So these are the two methods that you may adopt in order to learn the phrasal verbs better and quicker and faster. Okay, so that's about phrasal verbs. Thank you, and I'll meet you again.